I have wanted to be on the radio. We barely had internet at the time. We were still doing dial-up. So podcasts were not even a thought on the person. The person that invented podcasts weren't even a thought on anybody's brain. Now I can have a place where I can talk about what I want to talk about to the people that are willing to listen to me go on and on about nothing. It's going to be fun. Hello, family. So, you guys, it's been a minute. And as I have shared with you, we have a couple of things that we've been doing since the last time we saw each other. I'll tell you about one of them in this video, and I'll make another video to tell you about the other, just to catch you guys up on what has happened. So we're starting a podcast. We're launching it on November 15th, Friday, November 15th. We've also started a little relationship education academy, also launching on November 15th. And so if you guys are interested in improving your relationships, all of them, your romantic relationships, your family relationships, your friend relationships, even your co-worker relationships, if you're interested at all in improving those relationships, the Relationship Academy has something for you. Now, it absolutely may not. It absolutely may not be your cup of tea, right? I tend to not be everybody's cup of tea. And let me just tell you, that is perfectly fine. I'm not trying to convince you. But if you at all just want to stop by and check it out, hopefully you find some value. And if not, thank you for coming. It is, the podcast, though, is a dream of mine. And so if nothing else, just to come by and just say hi, because I will be sitting in almost a 30-year-long dream. I have wanted to be on the radio probably, since I was 18 years old. And we barely had internet at the time. We were still doing dial-up. So podcasts were not even a thought on the person. The person that invented podcasts weren't even a thought on anybody's brain, right? So the fact that now I can have a place where I can talk about what I want to talk about to the people that are willing to listen to me go on and on about nothing, it's going to be fun. All right. So that being said, you guys know that I am not consistent with this social media thing because I hate social media. So to help me with that, so that I can start being serious about the thing that I want people to take me seriously at, I have somebody helping me. So she is going to be my consistency on the social media site. So she has created a page for us. It is called Just Conversations. And there are a couple of handles. I will put those somewhere. But she's going to be our consistency. And so far, she's been doing a pretty good job of just letting people know that we have something coming, right? So to that end, she has said to me that I need to introduce myself to the world. And she gave me some questions. I said that I would answer the questions. I went to print the questions out. Did not remember that I did not have any ink. So I had to write them down. Here we go. I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all know I'm not fancy, right? You know I don't try to impress anybody. And I'm not fancy. So this is what it is. All right. So question number 1. What inspired you to start the podcast? Like I told y'all, I've always wanted a radio show. I wanted a radio show because I wanted to listen to music. I am a music lover. Like, music is the language of my soul. It truly is. So I wanted to be able to listen to music all day. That's what I wanted to be able to do. But back in the day, people that were radio personalities had a personality. I still don't have a personality, right? I am quite boring. And so I don't know that I am who you want to be listening to all the time. So I get it that the people were like, But what happened was I went to several different radio shows and did my little application, and the people were like, well, you can come in, you have to start, everybody starts at sales. So you can start at sales, and then if you bring in some business, some advertisement dollars, then we'll see. Well, I didn't know how to sell at 19. So there was that. But the dream didn't go anywhere. I still wanted to do it, and I still want to listen to music all day, every day. So what that turned into is me wanting to be able to listen to music and then have something to talk about. So talk radio, which was a thing too. It was just a thing on the AM stations. So that turned into that, but that was before I had life experience. Once I started to get some life experience, then I realized I have something to talk about, but I don't really want to talk about what I have to talk about because it's not fun. It's not cute. It's not sexy, right? These relationships are in turmoil, in trouble. And that's not fun to talk about. But it also is not fun that people are having such a difficult time in their relationships. That's not fun either. So I figured, let's try to help some people. So that's the inspiration. Just trying to help some people have some. I have found that happily ever after is a real thing. And you can have it in all of your relationships. You can. If you're willing to do the work, I can teach you how to do it. Simple. Okay, what makes my show different? What makes my show different is that I believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And as such, when you talk about improving yourself, you have to improve both aspects, right? So my show is going to give you some scripture to improve your spiritual being, and it's going to give you some science to improve your human being. We marry those two things together quite nicely. I'm not churchy. I have the Spirit of God. I carry him with me, but I'm not churchy, right? And scientifically, I got a couple of degrees and I know a little something, but I'm not theoretical in that when I speak to you, I'm giving you all these theoretical principles and concepts. I feel like, you remember when you were learning how to add and subtract and multiply and divide? You only could do that because you already knew your numbers. You had to learn the numbers first. And so once you learned the numbers, you were able to add and subtract and multiply and divide much more easily, right? Same thing with this. I feel like there are a lot of people in the relationship space and giving helpful information, but the information is not sustainable long term because people don't know their numbers. You don't have the fundamentals of relationships, how they work, the skill set that you need to have, the mindset, the character, that sort of thing. And people, for whatever the reason, don't believe that that's important. So we end up with the relationships that we end up with. So my show is different in that I'm giving you relationship education. And with that education, we're going to get some understanding. And then I'm going to give you some tools and some tools and tricks to go and execute so that your relationships can be better. This question is, what does G.Y.S.T mean? G.Y.S.T. So a couple things. The first thing is get your together. That's the first thing. The second thing is the gist of. So whatever I'm talking to you about, there's a gist to it. There's a point to it. So this is the gist of it. And then the other thing is we're just talking. I'm not telling you to go and do anything. I'm not telling you not to go and do anything. That's probably not true. At some point in the conversation, I'm going to tell you what to do and what not to do. But if you don't do those things, then it was just a conversation. Who is the podcast for? My podcast is for anybody who is open to doing or improving their relationships God's way, because it is the root of what it is that we do. We root this thing in God and we nurture it in science, right? Rooted in God, nurtured in science. And so with those two things, we're able to tackle the whole self. So it's a holistic approach. And let me add to that, not only if you're willing to do it God's way, it makes it easier, right? You could still listen to the podcast and you can still do all of the things that I ask you to do. without you knowing God or being in a relationship with him. It's just easier to do if you are. The other part is the work. Anybody that's willing to do the work can get to the other side and get to their happily ever after, right? Any fairy tale that you've seen, this happily ever after business comes from fairy tales, or we believe it comes from fairy tales. Well, art imitates life. So somebody somewhere knows that happily ever after is a real thing. They're not going to give it to animated characters, and human beings are not able to have this thing, to access this thing. So happily ever after is the notion that if you're willing to slay the dragon, if you're willing to cross the ocean, if you're willing to climb the mountain, if you're willing to go to the bottom of the sea for the treasure, right? You haven't seen a fairy tale where that has not been the case. I don't know if we feel like we can get to our happily ever after without it, but that's a major component. It's a major component. So you have to decide or find out or become aware of who your dragon is, what or who your mountain is, what or who your ocean is, what or who your bottom of the sea is. And you have to defeat that thing or person to get to your happily ever after. So we're going to spend some time in that space right there, because we have to find out who or what is standing in the way of you and your happily ever after. Okay. What personal and professional experience has shaped my perspective on relationships? Personally, I learned maybe about 10 years ago that the people that were coming to see me, the couples that were coming to see me, the individuals that were coming to see me had common relationship issues, as most people do. And I have figured that there are 6 categories that most people who are struggling with their relationships fall into. And from there, I was able to draw some patterns and connect some dots. And from there, I was able to create a course to help people who fall or find themselves in one of those 6 areas. So that aha moment was just paying attention, right? And tracing the patterns. And as therapists, that's what our job is to do, to help you connect the dots and help you to see the patterns. And so when I saw it, it was like, oh, okay. Because it started to be the same story, different cast, same script, different cast, right? So just paying attention and taking note and finding out if there was something to that. Personally, what is my personal experience that shaped my perspective on relationships? My personal experience is, even in relationships, people don't learn from success. They learn, in my opinion, from failure. So failing at, and I don't even say failing, but it's what people say. People say failing. I say it happened exactly like it was supposed to happen. Hopefully you learn the lesson. That's what I say. So for everybody that considers broken relationships or people that are not together anymore, for those people that consider that failure, I look at that as that is where the magic is, because that is where you're going to learn the lesson. If you're looking for it and you're not ruminating in the feelings of what happened or the loss of what happened, you can find out what the lesson is and better yourself. So for me, the failure is where the magic is. That's where the growth is. That's where the money is. It's in the failure of it. But you can't have just that. Once you find what the lesson is, once you find what the awareness is, what broke it, what the problem is, what the problem be, once you find that out, then we need a plan of action to move from that place. So you need them both, right? Because as long as everything is going well and everybody's happy, nobody's looking for anything. And I'm not telling you to start looking for problems in your relationship. You don't have to look for problems. They know how to show up and announce themselves. I'm saying take note of the problem and then let's start doing some assessment stuff, right? But those are all tools that I'll teach you if you rock with me, when you rock with me. We have more. So I'll come back with another video.